everybody. This is Dr. Adhi, that new global shaman, shaman at large, and sending my greetings and my love out to all of you O.R.I folks. I'm sorry I can't be with you this year because of the world events that we're in, but somehow we get to connect this way, which kind of fills that space in until we can actually be in the same place together. So I'm excited to be offering some insights and guidance and stuff that might uplift us in this time, because we're all going through some pretty heavy duty stuff right now. I think change is hard sometimes, and as someone who does a lot of shamanic work and I kind of always talk about change and how we have to be willing to transform and grow and shift and roll with the punches, and just kind of handle life as it comes to us. Like really we're all being pushed to the forefront of doing that in our lives, and I think all of us healers and those of us who do this work that we do to help others, to be of service, often we get kind of, it gets very intense for us, so I can tell you for the last few months it's been a lot to hear the voices of people who are really struggling right now, and to remember that when we sign up for this work, we sign up for it because we want to help the world be a better place. We want to help the planet to be a better place, and that's why I play my drum, and that's why I do my rattle, and that's why I show up and I teach people how to see beyond what's there, because we still have to go through it, whether we're there or not, whether we're spiritual or not. We still have to walk on the planet. We still have to show up. We still have to do our everyday things. And I think sometimes the hardest part of that, the task of that, is to be able to move from the mundane to the sacred and back again. And it's a real sort of method, or even just a way we want to sort of practice into it as like breathing. It's like a friend of mine was talking about how it's sort of like it's in our heart, and it's like, so and it's, we start here, right, but it kind of goes out, and it kind of goes out into the world, and it kind of circulates back in, and it's like that's the infinity symbol. It just keeps going out and going back in, and that's how our lives are, and that's kind of like the way that it all kind of works. We breathe it in, and we take in what we can handle, and then we breathe out what we can't handle. And that's in essence the idea of prayer too. So we take on what we can, and then we send it out. We ask for prayer. We ask for God or whoever we believe in, to guide us, to give us insights and guidance. We only take what we can, and then we turn it over, and right now we're dealing with so much of that right now on the planet. Like, we're all taking on as much as we can and turning it over to, the powers that be. And there's, there's nothing wrong. I think I need to just say this. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you're overwhelmed right now, because it is overwhelming, So if you're feeling that, if you're feeling like, your life is not what you thought it was, and you're feeling like maybe you made choices that aren't panning out, or maybe you're just realizing that life is shifting for you in ways that you couldn't change before. There's a lot of things about transformation that I think we need to look at as being a gift. It's like there's a saying, we're never given any more than what we can handle by the universe, and even though sometimes we question that, it's true. And everything is somehow part of some greater plan, even though in the moment when we're going through it, it might not seem that way. Although I also just want to say, we're not attracting bad energy either. I don't subscribe to the fact that, if bad things are happening to us, that we have somehow done something where that we're, I think that's wrong. Like we don't bring to ourselves bad things. I mean, stuff happens because we live in a world with a lot of variables, and we make choices, and other people make choices, and sometimes those things get mixed up in a way that's not good for a lot of people, and we call that unhealthy. And right now there's a lot of stuff going on the planet that is, would fall under that category of being unhealthy. So that's kind of, I guess sort of in essence where I'm at with this talk, is I just want to Part of it is being real, because I think we need to be real, and also understanding that as reality is what it is, it also is what we make it to be. And that's an inside job, and that's the transition from, you know, from mundane to sacred to spiritual. So the mundane world happens; it chugs along. It's this mechanism of life and stuff and things and emotions and work and learning and all of those things, and that all happens as a very sort of mechanical organization of things. And the spiritual part of that is how we, the conscious part of us, moves into that and finds a way to take those things that are challenging and see them as the tools to solve problems, okay? Or allows us to hold the space for grief, to feel loss, to also feel love and joy, all of those things, and sometimes it's pulling back and looking at the very large picture and going out and seeing, how big it is, and recognizing that some things are just, a tempest in a teapot, and then there are other things which are, when we pull in, they're the things that make life amazing and joyous, like the birth of a baby, or someone becoming well after a long illness, or the discovery of something beautiful in nature, a butterfly, or maybe being somewhere that just breaks your heart open with so much awe and beauty. These are all the things that kind of coalesce in our lives, and even when things aren't going the way we want to, and that's our ego. Our ego likes to stumble around and then wants to call the shots, but when it's going not as we want it, it's still going in a way that's moving us towards something. So you might feel stuck, but you're never really stuck. I mean, everything is moving forward. Everything is moving in each moment. Everything is bringing you towards something, okay? And our conscious awareness of that is what helps to see the miracles in each moment, see the potential in each moment, see the healing in each moment, to call the prayers into each moment, and that's how we navigate this sort of machine, this mechanism of life, because it's going to go on, whether we're conscious or not. I like to throw that in. It's like, well, if we're in denial, doesn't mean nature's in denial. We just aren't participating, and that has its own ramifications. But we're part of this bigger, greater picture, and I think that's part of the lesson of this time that we're in. I think that's really the thing I like to focus in on. It's like, everything we did got us to this moment. Whether we like it or not is kind of arbitrary, but everything we've done as a human species, as a collective, as a planet, everything got us here, got us right here, and then that's going to move us, in a direction individually, but also collectively, so we know that there's a lot of problems with the planet right now. There's a lot of pollution there. We've got runaway climate change in parts of the world. We've got melting polar ice caps. We've got the extinction of species. We're going to have mass migration as the climate makes more places inhospitable. So these are all gigantic things, and they're scary things, and they're real things. And then there's the what do we do about it kind of thing, and part of it is we look at the world as being something we participate in. I think that's the first part. So whether you're a dowser or an energy worker, or there's nobody ascends their way out of reality. Okay, that's a kind of a misnomer. You might become more aware and more awake, but that also should be the driving force for your compassion, the driving force for your engagement to make the world a better place, to engage with others, to build communities, to do things to help others, to be of service. So when we're looking at the planet, look around in your environment. We all live in different parts of the world. I mean, I've been so fortunate to travel all over the world and meet all sorts of amazing people. and but also your world is and your community and everything that you're in is your kind of microcosm, so how we sort of do that mundane to spiritual and mundane to sacred is based on your experience and where you're at. So if you're in a place where, let's say, water is plentiful, then maybe your part of your spiritual work is to be a good steward of that water. Take care of it, whether you're making prayers to it or maybe doing Raymond Grace's work or whatever, to take care of that water, to make sure it's pristine, to make sure it's safe, and maybe if you're in a place that has a lot of trees, maybe that's your job, is to go and take care of the trees and make sure they're safe and make sure they're taken care of, and maybe that's doing some of the mechanics of green space and open space, and getting places set aside so that they remain wetlands and stuff like that. So these are the things, and then these places, because they've been deemed special, then they become sacred. I think people have this idea that sacredness is you go in and you do prayers, or maybe you make a sacred circle or a medicine circle. And that's one way, but really, what makes something sacred is that we recognize its inherent aliveness and its inherent spirit. Okay, the spirit of its existence, and by doing so, we we enhance its magic, we enhance its ability to do healing work and to produce wellness, and wellness, not just in medicine plants or things like that, but wellness in the sense that when we go there, we feel we are a part of something. Okay, it heals the spirit. Okay. And then that becomes the sacred, and then maybe while you're there and it's healing your spirit and you're in communion with that space, maybe it offers through the power of plant medicine something that might heal your liver, or make you feel less stressed, etc. So there's a lot of ways to sort of wander within the context of what is sacred and what's mundane. And even if you're living in a city, so a lot of people say, well, I don't live in nature, I live in a city. Well, by the very definition, a city is also nature. It is an ecology of living things that have dwellings and space, and things grow and change and shift, etc. So it has a rhythm, and it has a cadence, and it has an environment, and it has an ecology. So even cities themselves, or the suburbs, etc., are also nature. And when we don't necessarily look at a termite mound and say that's not nature, even though it's a colony of like-minded, similar beings all living, in this sort of large tower of mud that they've constructed. Humans just do things a little bit differently, but it's the same thing. So so that sense of nature. So even in the cities, we can listen to the hum of the city. We can listen to the sounds of people living that close together and find the sacredness in that. Some people find sacred spaces in cities, like there's churches and synagogues and mosques and things like that. So there's that sort of sacred space. These are built sacred spaces that one moves into. There's also small green spaces like parks and things like that. And those become also these kind of sacred spaces. I don't know if you've ever been to New York City, but that's one of the beautiful things about New York City. Sometimes you're walking down a street and you'll look, and there'll be a little narrow alleyway, and you'll go, and if you kind of walk down, there's a tiny little green space. Someone has created this garden, and I've seen this also in other cities. So and those become sacred places, these sacred spaces. And even in large architecture, we can also find that the shape of things, the shape of forms, that's part of the work of the biogeometry people. So looking for these mundane spaces and these sacred spaces, and the ability to be aware and awaken them and use them to utilize where we're at right now in the world. Making spaces beautiful, but also using them as the means to understand, where our next step is. So one of the things about sacred space, wherever one finds it, is that it allows us to open up to not just our hearts, but also open us up to whatever the divine spirit is above us or around us or in everything. So So we can use these spaces as places for insight and guidance, to say our prayers and to navigate our deeper waters, as a friend of mine used to always say. So as we're looking at the world differently and trying to roll with all of the shifts and changes that are happening right now, we have to always remember that it comes back to one thing: it's kindness. And I can't stress this enough. And I know sometimes it's really hard to be kind in a world that seems harsh. But kindness has one pretty powerful product, and that's love and compassion. Actually, two. And what we need right now more than anything is love and compassion in the world. I think we're struggling so much because it has kind of been pushed to the fringes in some of the more chaotic things that are happening right now. But I think one of the things we all have to sort of really, push out of our hearts is kindness. When I was studying, early on when I was studying Tibetan Buddhism, that was one of the things it's about loving kindness, and sometimes it seems impossible, but the idea is if we are kind in the face of all things, now that doesn't mean we accept abuse or any of those things, but if we are kind as often as we can, the response of most people is kindness back. Because if we practice seeing people, if we practice witnessing, if we practice listening, if we practice all the things, courtesy, recognizing people's humanity, the product of that is more of that in return. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson right now in the world, is that we offer that magic of kindness, and know that as long as we do kindness, and also kindness in action. So, and what does that look like? Kindness in action is showing up and voting, showing up and helping people who might need a meal, protecting the waters, protecting our wild spaces, making sure the people in our community are safe, all of those things. So, I think that's where we can find kindness and we can see the results of that kindness and that compassion in the world. Because if we don't do that, I don't really know what the world would look like. I think we're getting a taste of what it could look like. But I can honestly say, having traveled across the country for 2.5 years, stopping in various places all over the country, having met people in all sorts of different walks of life and in different environments, I can tell you that most people are very kind. And I think that's what surprised me the most about driving around. Because if you just look at social media, you would think the world is a terrible place. But I think in the end, we all want the same thing. We all want clean water. We all want a nice place to live. We all want to feel safe in our homes, and we want our children to grow up. We want our food to not poison us, and we want all the same stuff. And it's not our differences that should divide us. It's our diversity that should bring us together. Because our diversity is what also is our greatest asset and strength. Because through our diversity, we can have a rich pool of ideas and ways to solve problems, and ways to come together to make the world a better place. Because no one person has all the answers. If that's anything I've learned so far. I have some, but often my greatest asset is to ask for help, and to sort of say, I don't know. I'll just kind of end this by saying, we do our best as human beings on this planet when we work together, and when we find our greatest asset is our ability to pray and to be thankful and to have gratitude and to share our skills and share our knowledge, share our wisdom, make art, all these things. These are all the things that feed our hearts and our beings, and we're all in it together, and and we can all make a big difference working together. And I think that's the magic of right now, is finding those places where we all work together, where we find our greatest strengths in our diversity, and our magic, our magic in our curiosity. Because remember, the world we live in is designed for us to be curious, and for us to explore, and for us to find meaning and resource. So I wish I could be there with you all this year, but I'm glad we're getting together this way. All you O.R.I. folks, big hugs in your direction. Yeah, take good care out there in the world, doing whatever magical things you all do. So this is the new global shaman, Shaman at Large, Dr. D. See you on the other side.